Last week saw the return of Cityscape Global, the biggest real estate event in the region. What was the message that went out to investors? That's the topic of today's edition of Inside AB. I'm Jeremy Lawrence and I'm here in the studio with Bernd de Boosman. All right, Bernd, you were at Cityscape all week. Well done for doing that. What was the message that was going out there to the market?
Well, it's interesting. On the first day, Marwan Bin Ghalita, who's the CEO of Rera, the Real Estate Regulatory Agency, he kind of gave a message to developers saying that they need to deliver on their promises and build trust with the investors, because if they don't do that, not only does it ruin the relationship between the developer and the investor, but it makes Dubai's property market look bad as a whole. It ruins trust in Dubai itself. So his words were actually quite stern in terms of what he was telling developers to do. So that was kind of a good opening message for Cityscape, because that was something that was discussed, how to build trust throughout this sector.
And I guess 15 years into freehold property, we do know now who the good developers are, the ones with a proven track record. So he's saying, you've got to make sure you're one of those ones. And
actually, I spoke with the head of Astigo, which is a real estate management agency, the Middle East's largest, and she said the same thing. She said that in her view, the good developers are the ones that have made a name for themselves by treating the investors right, treating the residents right, being above board with everything, being very transparent. In her view, though, she kind of disagreed with the head of Rera in this, and she said that when a development doesn't deliver on its promises, it doesn't necessarily reflect poorly on Dubai as a whole. It reflects poorly on that developer, and once a developer's name is tarnished, it's quite hard to get it back.
Right. Fine. Oversupply was talked about, as it has been in the last couple of years. What was the word coming out from there on that subject?
Well, Rera said, again, that's the responsibility of the developers. Because the government of Dubai can't actually do anything about the supply. They can't add supply and they can't take it away. They're not actually developing or building any property themselves. So it's really up to the developers. And then Elaine Jones, the head of Astico, in her view, she said that, and of course there's an oversupply in some parts of the city because Dubai's grown so much in a very short time. But that doesn't necessarily mean there's an oversupply across the city. Everywhere. And she said, which I think is interesting, that the issue is not the oversupply. The issue is jobs, because if you build a development and build a bunch of houses there, people need to be employed to be able to move to Dubai. People need to be employed to be able to buy a house or rent. So oversupply is actually not the issue here. The issue is whether there's
the right supply in the right places and the right jobs to support that.
Of course,
yeah. So what about short-term demand first? If we talk about, what was the feeling about that?
Well, generally the feeling is that 2019 will be better than this year, if only because also 2020 is coming up, so a lot of projects kind of have to be finished very soon, or finished, or even started and finished in some cases. And a lot of developers had announced handovers that, in retrospect, were quite ambitious, that they would hand over in the second half of this year. That's unlikely in many cases now, in some cases in Dubai's, and those will all be handed over next year. So there'll be quite a lot of activity in the market, especially as you go up to 2000.
Right. What was the long-term feeling?
Well, the long-term feeling, and this isn't just for Dubai, this is for the UAE in general, is that there's a lot happening. Obviously, these developers have faith. They wouldn't just develop an area for nothing. So there's faith that people would come. But what I thought was interesting is that, for example, Al Jada in Sharjah, they're it's different. They're building proper communities in the way that perhaps you and I would be more accustomed to in Europe, with parks, walkable areas and stuff. It's not just kind of cloned houses, down miles and miles of road.
And the same with Imkan up in Gantu, and with Meydan in Jebel Ali, the same kind of thing. You've got canals, waterways, living spaces, green areas.
Yeah, so these are proper neighborhoods that, in general could be self-sustaining for the residents. You live there, you work there, you send your kids to school there, you go to the park, etc.
And we were actually just talking earlier on, weren't we, about when you build these proper communities, not only could they be good for semi-retirees and retirees, even now you've got these new visa options, because it's an integrated community in a real sense. it could also be good for things like Airbnb, so it could be a great investment.
Especially now that there's companies that are managing that,
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily have to be here to manage your own property for an Airbnb.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something that's going to take off as well.
Because second homes, holiday homes was talked about, wasn't it, with some of these projects?
Of course, yeah, and I mean, a lot of these people that presumably are going to invest in these properties aren't necessarily in the UAE. They could be in Europe, they could be in India or other parts of the Middle East.
Russia.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's something we'll see a lot more of, people buying properties and not renting it necessarily, but using it as kind of those short-term Airbnb type of stays.
Yeah, interesting. So that's obviously shows there's long-term faith in the market and the amount of people around this region and further afield even that want to come and be a part of it. So
that's right.
Yeah. All right, well, that was Cityscape this year. Do let us know what you think. So oversupply is always a big question, and all the other issues related to real estate. Who are the companies that are doing a good job in your opinion? Others less so. Do share all your thoughts on the YouTube page below in the comments, and we'll see you every weekday at 10 a.m. Bye.